College students are the primary audience for this book. Students that are enrolled in public speaking, oral presentations, and even in the business communication classes, they use this book. It's used also in industry, though, not just academia, but in industry. In the high-tech world, it's used by people in sales, and it's also used in upper management development when they develop managers on how to give an oral presentation. So they go back to the basics on how do you communicate your thoughts and your feelings to people. Well, The Natural Speaker is a very different book when you compare it to other larger textbooks. It's easy to read and understand, number one. It's not like those 500-page textbooks that have footnotes on every sentence and has the microscopic lettering. But this is, number two, a friendly, encouraging, and oftentimes humorous book. Students always report that they feel really encouraged by each chapter. The third thing that makes this different from the bigger textbooks is that rather than content or research oriented, it's very skills focused. And by that, I mean that in The Natural Speaker, the students really focus on how to give an effective, impactful, and very, very engaging speech. And the fourth thing I believe is real important is that the book is cheap. It's only a 1/3 to, and many times 1/4 of the price of a big 500-page textbook, so that students actually buy the book rather than groups of students buying one book and passing it around. They actually buy it for themselves because it's inexpensive. This 10th edition brings about 10, 11 new components to it. I'd like to just talk about 4 of them. First, number one, in this day and age of all the technological advances and world global situations, we've had a really emphasis, or we've had a much increased use in online presentations. And so we've included a new chapter solely devoted to online presentations, how to give a better speech over the internet. Number two, we have a portion that is how to lead groups online, how to lead problem-solving groups, how to facilitate group meetings. And that's another addition to this new book. And then third, effective online participation. There's a lot on how to lead and how to do an oral presentation, but very little is ever said about how do you become a good participant online. And so we've devoted a whole section on this one thing, giving you tips on how to be more engaging, more effective as a participant, whether it's in a Zoom meeting or a panel discussion, or just the family gathering online to see each other. And then finally, we have a new intercultural considerations section where you really take a look at the many cultures that are available, that are present in your audience. And so it helps you look at what topics to select, what material to research, how to arrange that material so that it is really engaging to many different audience, the components of many different audiences, and then how to deliver your speech so you're always respectful to the intercultural aspect or dimensions of your audience. Well, any instructors using this book have the instructor's manual available to them online. And so they, in that instructor's manual, I outline how to set up your class if they need help there, how to establish the course calendar if they need help there, and also, how to run the class in terms of activities and exercises. But the two things that I'd like to tell instructors that use this, number one, is that your students will actually purchase and read the book. Since it is a relatively small book and a relatively easy book to read, we find that you'll be surprised that your students will actually know the content of every chapter. So that's a nice surprise for the instructor. one tip I would give the instructors is to really emphasize what I call the 3 S's. And the 3 S's are to keep speeches real simple and not to go for the more complex structure of a speech, but always favor a simpler speech design. The second S is strength, or to have each speech be strong. And by that, I mean the delivery of the speaker himself or herself. And with that, you have very direct delivery. So the less emphasis on a manuscript speech or a lot of notes or note cards, but more on you getting closer to the audience where you have more eye contact. The strength of a speaker is in the rapport he or she establishes with that audience. And we find that's with eye contact, getting close to the audience, and getting away from the podium. The last one is, the last S of the 3 S's, is to keep your speeches short. We have a tendency, especially in academia, to want to have bigger speeches. It proves research. It proves that you have a command of a great, vast amount of material. But we find in the real world, and when I work in industry and coach people on speaking, that we find that the shorter the speech, the more impact it has. And so those 3 S's, that's one of the tips I give the instructors, is to really encourage your speakers as they develop their speaking skills to be really brief, to be short, to be strong in their delivery. In other words, to really come closer to the audience and away from the notes. And third, to be simple in your structure, because really a couple of minutes after every speech, there's research that shows that about 90% of what the speaker said is lost. We don't remember that much. So keep your speeches short and strong and simple. The most important, well, there are 2 things I'd like to share with the students. But the first one is that your speaking skills is, I believe, secondary to a more important calling you have as a human being. And that might be your purpose for communication. There's an old songwriter, an ancient songwriter, that said, life and death is in the power of the tongue. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. And what that tells us is that what we say and how we communicate can really enlarge other people, or it can diminish other people. And so foundational to every chapter of that book, even though every chapter emphasizes the skills of public speaking and how to learn them, practice them, and improve them, undergirding every paragraph in this textbook is the fact that you really bring life or you bring death to people with the content of what you say, by how you say it, and the purposes of all the things that you hope to share, via communication. The final thing I'd like to tell my students that are using this book is, and this might be, this is from chapter 2, and it's real important, and that is, in this lifetime, I want you to be gentle on yourself. The world will tell you that you have to be somebody important, you have to make a lot of money, you have to gain a lot of power, you have to have influence over many, many people, you have to be popular. And I remind you throughout this book that it's more important to have progress, to experience progress in your development as a human being, but not perfection. Perfection will get you in trouble in the long run. But if you're always making progress every day to be better, both physically and psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, you're on the right track. And so in this book, it really encourages you to be a better person, not a perfect person. And with public speaking, we never want to make a mistake. And I would encourage you to make at least one mistake in every speech so that your audience will like you. There's funny research on that a perfect speaker that is just wonderful in every way is not always highly regarded and a lot of affection towards that speaker. So in this lifetime, I want you to always remember that life and death is in the power of your tongue, and that in your journey in life, you be real nice to yourself, you be real gentle. Perfection is not the goal, but progress is. So I wish you real good progress in your journey through this lifetime.